Hi, this is Joe Herman. This week for the Coretta Scott King Award, I chose Tar Beach. This book won the Coretta Scott King Award in 1992. It's by Faith Ringgold. She was also the illustrator. Um, it was a really good story. Um, I labeled it Cultural Diversity, a slight autobiography, because it is about her being a child. Um, and it discusses a lot of her imagination. Um, the illustrations she did herself. She was a well-known painter, starting in the early 50s. On a little bit of her backstory, um, it discusses a lot about the George Washington Bridge, where her and her family grew up in that area. So I don't know if it was based in New York or New Jersey, being as the George Washington Bridge spans across the Hudson River connecting the two. But she discusses about her flying, and as you can see here, um, in this little excerpt right here, she discusses about how she's flying over her family and the Honeys, this other family, having dinner. This is her brother laying on the mattress as she's flying over, kind of a bird's eye view. And it goes on um, to discuss just how her family was um, oh discriminated against. The book takes place in 1939. It begins in 1939 when the George Washington Bridge opened up, which her dad worked on, and it discussed her dad being a foreman at a construction company, but he was not allowed into the union because of the family heritage. And she talks about how she would fly over these buildings. Her father always told her that if she flew over the building, then she could claim it as hers. And she just kind of talks about how her dreams of the way she wants to change her family's future. Um, at the very end of the book, she talks about flying over with her brother and the things that they can do together. But I kind of, the very last page, it shows something that I kind of used as my idea that I would like to do for the classroom. Um, so I don't know how clearly you can see this, but this was her picture quilt. And my thought was, in the classroom, I would start the story, a couple of characters, give the setting, and just a brief introduction, and each student would be responsible for writing a few sentences adding to the story, adding characters, and we would make the story our own as the classroom. And in this quilt, and this is an actual quilt, this is just a picture of it, the story goes along the top edge and again on the bottom edge, um, and it just kind of shows little pictures. And what I would like to do is have the class draw a picture along with their part of the story, and we would take it and create a quilt for the classroom. Um, and you don't really see what she's talking about when she discusses Tar Beach, but in some of these pictures, I've come to think she's discussing being on the rooftop. On the top of their apartment building, it's a tar base um, rooftop, and this is where her and her brother are laying and using their imagination, dreaming about them flying. But this idea would let the students kind of use their imagination and build off of each other, and we would create a quilt of our own for each classroom.